Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to step off the familiar roads, head into the deep woods, and deconstruct two really chilling personal accounts from the forgotten corners of our world. So let's just dive right in with a question. What really happens when you stray from the safe and familiar path? You know, when the hum of the highway finally fades away, what are you left with out there? We're going to be looking at two stories that honestly sound like they're pulled straight out of a horror movie, but they're presented as real-life experiences. And we're not just here to retell them. We're going to break them down to really understand the mechanics of fear, what makes them so profoundly terrifying. Okay, so our first account. It starts out innocently enough, a walk in the woods, maybe just a little bit off the main trail. But this one simple detour, well, it led to something truly disturbing. It all kicks off with a sensory clue. Something is just off, an overpowering, sickly, sweet smell. And instead of turning back, you know how it is, that human curiosity takes over. It leads the narrator to pull back some bushes to find out what on earth is making that strange, unforgettable scent. And the reality of what he finds is just stark. It wasn't just a body, but the grim results of decomposition. The details are pretty unflinching, swollen, discolored, and already becoming part of the forest's ecosystem. This isn't movie horror. This is a raw, visceral discovery. But here's the thing. The initial shock actually gives way to something much, much worse, a drawn-out ordeal. He calls the police, but being so deep in the woods, help is hours away. And as the daylight fades, he's left waiting, alone, in the dark, with the body. I mean, the real horror here is the stillness and that forced companionship with death. But the real horror, the part that lingers, didn't even start until long after the police arrived. The event seeped into the narrator's dreams. The deceased, who had committed suicide, started speaking to him with this menacing personal message. You see, this isn't just about finding something awful. It's about that awfulness following you home and taking root right inside your mind. All right, let's shift gears. Our second story takes us from the ancient stillness of the woods to the modern transient danger of a lonely highway at night. This one sets the stage with a scenario that is so relatable, but also really dangerous. I mean, we've all been there, right? Driving late and a wave of exhaustion just hits you out of nowhere. The narrator knows it's unsafe to keep going, but there's nowhere that feels safe to stop. And this leads to what the narrator themselves calls a very questionable decision. You can really see how the dread just slowly escalates here. I mean, look at the timestamps. This isn't a sudden jump scare. It's a 78-minute ordeal. A brief scratch at 11:50 is easy to dismiss. But at 12:40, it comes back, and this time it doesn't stop. That final glimpse of something running into the forest is the signal to get the heck out of there. So the narrator makes the right call and gets out of there fast. But as they round a bend just 100 yards up the road, that sense of general unease transforms into a feeling of active, calculated danger. They see another car, parked, with its driver's side door just hanging open. It feels like bait. It feels like a trap. And then the threat becomes terrifyingly human. A man comes sprinting from where the narrator just was, screaming aggressively. The scratching wasn't an animal. It was a person, testing the car, waiting. The horror is no longer ambiguous. It's immediate, violent, and very, very personal. Okay, so with both of those chillin' accounts fresh in our minds, let's pull them apart. What are the shared elements that make these stories so effective at getting under our skin? What's really fascinating is how these stories represent two fundamental flavors of fear. On one side, you've got the supernatural threat from the first story, a vengeful spirit that causes psychological, internal damage. On the other, you have the human threat, an unknown assailant posing a physical, external, and immediate mortal danger. The settings themselves are crucial characters in these stories. The woods tap into a primal, timeless fear of being completely removed from civilization. The roadside, though, plays on a more modern dread, the fragile illusion of safety in our own car, and the horror, not of ancient things, but of who might be just a few feet away. This is a perfect example of a concept known as the uncanny, and it's exactly why the second story is so effective. A car parked on the side of a road is an ordinary sight, but in that specific context, late at night, after being watched, that familiar object becomes deeply sinister. The uncanny is what turns the mundane into the menacing. So if you boil it all down, you find that both stories, though they seem very different on the surface, are built from the same fundamental blueprint for fear. They both start with isolation. They both feature a questionable decision that leads the protagonist into danger. They both use an unexplained sensory clue, a smell or a sound, to build suspense. And they both end with a deep, lingering psychological scar. But after the danger has passed, what are we left with? And that brings us to our final and I think most crucial point. So what's the real takeaway? It's this: the event itself, whether it's waiting with a body or escaping an attacker, eventually ends. But the story of that event does not. The true horror is the echo, the ghost that reappears in dreams, the memory that makes you check your rearview mirror. The encounter is finite, but the fear, well, that can last a lifetime. And that leaves us with a final thought to consider. What truly frightens us more? The internal threat that we can never escape because it lives inside our own mind, or the external threat that could be waiting for us just around the next bend? There's no easy answer. And maybe that ambiguity is the most terrifying part of all.